Hey guys, this is Ben. Welcome back to the channel. We are now somehow a couple of months into 2022, and this weekend we have our first major movie release in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The whole box office angle of the movie industry is something that I find very interesting, and I like talking about what kind of movies do well, which ones underperform, and for what reasons. So today I thought it'd be fun to do a little prediction video. So I'm going to highlight most of the big major releases that are coming out each month this year and talk about how well I think they're going to do and which ones I think have a chance at hitting that 1 billion mark. So let's start with Ant-Man, which, like I said, is coming out this weekend. Now, if we look back at the past couple of Ant-Man films, they've been some of the more underperforming films in the MCU. The first one made just over $500 million worldwide, and the second one made $622 million worldwide. So they're not the big event films for Marvel. Usually. This movie, on the other hand, is being marketed as that big event movie, the movie that's kicking off Phase 5. It seems to have more weight behind it, and because of that, it might get some more people interested in going to see it because they don't think it's just some palate cleanser movie. But there's a couple things going against this movie. The first thing being that the reviews have come out and they aren't looking great. This film is holding just about 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is one of the worst reviewed films in the entire MCU. Also, we are kind of in a bit of an era right now of people feeling superhero fatigue. That is a very real thing. People are being a bit more picky and choosy for what superhero films they're going to go see at the theaters. I don't think this film is going to hit $1 billion or anything like that. I do think it's going to be successful. I feel like the audience might like this film more than the critics. So I'm going to put my prediction for this movie at around 600 to 700 million. I'm going to put it in the same bracket as Ant-Man 2. I think it'll make around the same amount as that first film did. I would honestly be surprised if it makes anything above $800 million. I could see it making less than 600. I don't think this is going to be a massive hit for Marvel. By the way, with all these films, when I give you my prediction, I'm going to give you about a $100 to $150 million range. All right, moving on to our first major release of March with Creed 3. So the first Creed movie made $173 million, so not a hugely profitable film. And then Creed 2 made just over $200 million. So a little bit of an uptick from that first movie, but still not a huge return for that movie. I do think that this will do better than the first two movies, and it will continue that uptick in the box office, especially when you got Jonathan Majors in there. This is Michael B. Jordan directing, although one thing to note is that Sylvester Stallone is not in this movie. So with all that being said, I'm going to put my range for this movie from 250 million to around 350 million. That is my prediction for what Creed 3 will end up making at the end of the day. All right, let's move on to Scream 6, which I think will be a decent hit. Last Scream movie, Scream 5, which came out just over a year ago in January of 2022, made $140 million worldwide. I think this movie will do a little bit better than that film. When you have this new angle of it being set in New York, I think that's going to interest some people. You also have Jenna Ortega, which is now a huge star coming off of Wednesday. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing this movie just because she's in it. The trailers have been very good. So with all that being said, I think I'm going to put my prediction for this movie between 150 and 250 million. I think it'll do a little bit better than the last Scream film, but not by a lot. Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods also comes out in March, and this is an interesting one. The last Shazam movie made $366 million, which is not fantastic for a big superhero movie, especially in 2019 when you had Endgame and Captain Marvel being released in that year as well. So I just don't think this character has really caught on with moviegoers as much as they would have hoped. And honestly, the marketing for this movie has been a little weak thus far. I don't think it's really made a lot of people interested, and I don't think it's gonna win a ton of people over that didn't go see that first Shazam movie. So I think we might see a little bit of an uptick from that first film because a lot of people have seen it and caught it on streaming and such and have enjoyed it. But I think it's gonna end up doing in the same range as that first movie, unless it's like really good, really surprisingly good, but I'm not so sure about that. So I'm gonna put my prediction from 350 to 450 million. That's my range. I think it could actually do a little bit worse than the first Shazam movie. I think it could do a little bit better. I'd be surprised if it does substantially better, especially in this, like I said, superhero fatigue era that we're in right now. John Wick 4 is a really interesting movie because each John Wick film has been doing better and better at the box office. We went from 86 million with the first one to 171 to $327 million for John Wick Chapter 3. So that is a big, substantial uptick with each one of those films. So I think that this one is going to continue that uptick and is going to do even better than John Wick 3. Granted, I think that if this film isn't good, then that could really hurt its chances. But if we're assuming that this movie is going to be good, I think it could do even better than John Wick 3. This is a growing franchise that's getting more and more popular. It's been reported that the film is like almost 3 hours long though, which I think could hurt its repeat viewings and might turn some people off from going to see it. But I do still think it's going to do very well, and I expect this movie to be good. I'm going to predict that it hits between 450 and 550 million. That's my range there. I think this will probably settle around 500 million. That's my guess. $500 million, which would be an insane return for this franchise, which started off as a little nothing franchise. It's incredible to see how much this franchise has grown. Dungeons and Dragons, I don't know about this one. The trailers have been all right. I've enjoyed the trailers. I don't know how much interest this movie has behind it, how many people are going to want to go and see this movie in the theaters. I think a lot of people are just going to decide that this is one they can catch on streaming. I don't know about this one. I don't think this is going to be a massive hit, but again, it could be another one of those movies that if it's really good, like surprisingly good, it could have really long legs. It could be one that gets a lot of great word of mouth and people do end up going to see it. So it's hard to say. I think this one is a bit of a wild card in which direction it could go. It could flop. It could do really well. Personally, I'm going to put my prediction around $200 million. $200 to $250 million. I think that's what it's going to make. We'll see. That wouldn't be really a big success for this movie. I guess I'm predicting that it's a little bit of a disappointment. Okay, the next movie is one that I do not think will be a disappointment at all, and that is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I think this movie is going to be huge. Ever since this movie was announced, ever since we got that first trailer, I've been saying that I think this movie is going to hit $1 billion. I think it's going to be massive. You got Illumination, which consistently pumps out huge movies at the box office. Just last year, Minions Rise of Gru made almost $1 billion. You can't bet against Illumination when it comes to animation in the theaters. And then you have an iconic franchise with Mario, and there's never been a Mario Bros. Movie made, or at least not an animated film. There was that live action film years ago, but not a film like this. Even the people who were skeptical of this movie, it seems like a lot of them have been won over by the trailers. Everybody's loving the trailers. Everybody's excited for this movie. Young and old, I think, are going to go and see this movie. You're going to have the older generation who grew up on Mario. You're going to have the kids who want to go see this movie. It's going to be a big family summer hit. I think it's easily making $1 billion. I'm going to put my prediction from like 1.1 to 1.2 billion. And I think it could make more than that. I think this is going to be massive. All right, we have a couple of movies in a row here now that I think all have a pretty big shot at making $1 billion. Guardians 3. I think Guardians 3, if any superhero movie this year is going to make $1 million, it's going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is the conclusion of the franchise. Both films are beloved. This film just looks really good. The trailers look incredible. I think a lot of people are going to want to go and see this movie in the theaters to see the final ride for the Guardians. And yeah, the last Guardians movie made $860 million. So I think it's going to make more than the second Guardians film. And going off that, I'm going to put my prediction between $900 million and $1 billion. That's my range. I think it might just hit that $1 billion mark, maybe end up in the $900 million range. Who knows? We'll see. Another movie that I think is going to be one of the most successful movies of the year is Fast X. The Fast and Furious franchise is a huge money-making franchise. Fast 7 and 8 both made over $1 billion. I think Fast 7 made like $1.5 billion. Granted, each movie has been making less money ever since Fast 7. Fast 8 made like 1.2. Fast 9 made only like 750 million. But Fast 9 came out in like the heat of the pandemic. In the middle of the pandemic, when a lot of the big movie markets, Fast and Furious is like a big worldwide brand, big worldwide franchise. It makes a lot of money in its international market, and a lot of those markets were closed, and it still managed to make $726 million. So I think this movie is going to be able to hit that $1 billion mark once again. If it's like at least okay and enjoyable, I think people are gonna wanna go and see this movie. I'm gonna put my prediction from, like Guardians, 900 million to $1 billion. I'm gonna put it just hitting $1 billion. Next, we got Disney's big movie for May, which is The Little Mermaid. Well, I guess Guardians is also Disney, but Disney live action with The Little Mermaid. You can't bet against these live action remakes, okay? Lion King made $1.6 billion. You know, whatever you think about that movie, put that aside. It made $1.6 billion. That's one of the most successful movies of all time. Beauty and the Beast made over $1 billion. Even Jungle Book made over $1 billion. And this is another movie in the Disney Renaissance era. So we got Beauty and the Beast remake, which did great. You got The Lion King, which did great. Aladdin, which made over $1 billion. And this is another one of those classic Disney Renaissance movies, an iconic movie that's being adapted, and everybody's very excited for this movie. I don't see why this movie wouldn't make $1 billion, honestly. It has a little bit of controversy behind it, but I don't think that's going to stop it from being very successful. Test screenings have went well, apparently. Apparently audiences are liking the movie, which obviously really helps. So I think if this movie is at least good, it will do very, very well, because even some of those other live action remakes weren't the best, yet still managed to be super, super successful. Now, if this movie doesn't do super well, maybe that shows us that audiences are getting a little tired of the Disney live action remakes. So that'll be a bit of a warning sign to Disney, because this movie should be a slam dunk financially for them. Let's move on to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The first Spider-Man movie only made $384 million. It was not a big movie financially, didn't do super, super well, but obviously it has garnered a massive following and fan base, and people love this movie, and tons of people have seen it digitally and caught up with the movie since it's been released. So I think this movie is going to see a big jump up at the box office from that first movie. I think a lot of people are going to go and see this movie. A lot of people are very, very excited for this movie. This one is also a bit of a wild card. I could see it being very, very, very huge if it's really good and if it captures the magic from the first one. Either way, I think it's easily making like at least 500 million. I'm gonna put my prediction at 600 to 650 million, which would be like almost double what the first movie made. So that would be massive and that'd be a big success. We'll see. I think, like I said, if the movie is great, if it's as good as the first one, I think it could do that or even better. Transformers Rise of the Beasts is an interesting one because the Transformers franchise was at one point a massive franchise. You had a couple movies in there that made over $1 billion, but then you saw a massive drop in the box office with The Last Night, which came out in, I believe, 2017. That movie made like 600 and something million dollars, which was about half of what the previous entry made. So that was a massive dip at the box office for the franchise, and clearly the Transformers franchise has been hurt a little bit. Audiences have been hurt by the low quality of the movies, which you also saw with Bumblebee, which was a great movie and received very well by critics and audiences, yet it only managed to make about $465 million at the worldwide box office. So I don't know. This one I don't think is going to be massive. I honestly think that it's going to do similar to Bumblebee, although it is more of like a traditional Transformers movie with everybody in it again. But I don't know. I don't know if the audience is kind of turned off to the Transformers franchise at this point. It's going to be interesting to see. I will also say that the marketing hasn't been fantastic. The trailers haven't really caught on, it seems, and nobody's really talking about this movie. Obviously, the marketing could pick up a lot before the movie comes out. So I'm going to put my prediction for this movie, 350 to 450 million, which would be in the Bumblebee range. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it does about as well as Bumblebee. We'll see. We got a new director around this time, though. We don't got Michael Bay. So the movie could be much better. Again, like with all these movies, if it's a really, really good movie, it could end up doing much better and have great word of mouth and great legs. All right, so Elemental, which comes out in June, is Pixar's movie for this year. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Disney animation and Pixar movies, I think Disney has kind of hurt their chances at the box office for those movies because of how they've trained their audiences. They've been putting these movies like on Disney Plus within 30 days of release ever since COVID, and they've kind of trained their audiences to expect that and to not go to the theaters and just wait for it to show up on Disney Plus. Now, it is being reported that they're considering not doing that for their animated movies this year and having a longer theatrical window, which I think would be massive, and I think they should definitely do that, because otherwise these movies are never going to do well at the box office. But Elemental, I strangely think, could actually do pretty well, because I think it's going to be good. People have been saying that this is behind the scenes, that this is another potential Pixar classic, and that it's going over super well. And this just seems like a classic Pixar concept. And honestly, the trailer for this movie and the buzz for this movie has been gaining a little traction. People have been talking about this movie. People seem interested. I think people might want to go and see this movie. The biggest thing that's going against this movie is, like I said, the whole aspect of Disney movies going pretty quickly to Disney Plus, so audiences just don't think it's worth it. And it's coming out in a very busy time. It comes out at the same day as The Flash. It comes out right after Transformers and Spider-Verse. So a little original Pixar movie put in the middle of all those films might not survive. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to do really well. I think, again, this is a bit of a gamble. It's a bit of a wild card. Could do really well. Could bomb completely like Strange World did. I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to put my prediction at $400 million to $500 million. That would be better than Lightyear. That'd be better than Strange World. But I'm hoping that people will want to go and see a new original Pixar movie in the theaters. All right, so like I said, The Flash comes out on the same day as Elemental. And I think people are sleeping on The Flash a little bit when it comes to its box office chances. Yes, there is a lot of controversy surrounding this film with Ezra Miller, but a lot of that isn't known by the general audience. If you ask somebody on the street about Ezra Miller, they're gonna have no clue who he is, and they're gonna have no clue what he's been doing and what he's been up to. So a lot of people aren't really gonna care about that, and even the people who do know what's going on might still go and support the movie anyways. This movie it's really like the No Way Home for The Flash and for Batman, really. And you know how crazy people go for cameos and for nostalgia. I think people are gonna go crazy for this movie. Obviously, it's been reported again and again that this film is incredible. James Gunn himself said it's one of the best comic book movies ever made. So the fact that this movie is getting pushed so hard, that it was the one movie they gave a Super Bowl trailer to, I think they have a lot of hope for this movie. I think they're gonna push it hard, and I think it's gonna do very well. I'm gonna put my prediction at $800 to $900 million. That's pretty high, I know, but I think it's gonna be big. I think this movie's gonna be good. I think it's gonna have great word of mouth. I think people are gonna love seeing Michael Keaton return. Yeah, one thing going against it is that it's part of the DC universe, which is a bit of a weird state right now with audiences. Audiences don't really know what's happening, what to expect. Maybe this movie won't open huge, but I think it's gonna have great word of mouth, and it's gonna end up doing big numbers in the long run. This is gonna be a big year for movies, guys. Like, there's a lot of movies on here that could do very, very well. So many movies that I wonder which ones are gonna be hurt by the saturated marketplace. But anyways, Indiana Jones 5 is an interesting one, again, because I really do think that the success of this movie will largely depend on its reception. If this movie is just not received well at all, I think it could have a big opening, but then teeter off pretty quickly. But it's Indiana Jones. This is an iconic franchise, the last film in the franchise, supposedly, the last one for Harrison Ford, for sure. And you got James Mangold directing this movie, and James Mangold just does great movies. He's a great director, so I have no reason to believe this movie's not gonna be great, even if I personally haven't thought the trailers have been all that good. So come on, this is an iconic franchise on the big screen, in the middle of summer. Again, I think you're gonna get the older audience that's gonna wanna come and see Indiana Jones on the big screen again, and then the younger audience as well. So the last movie made $790 million, and it wasn't received all that well. So for all those reasons, I'm gonna put my guess at $750 to $850 million. That's my range. I think it's gonna do very well. Maybe not like $1 billion or anything like that, but I think it's going to do very well. All right, Mission Impossible 7, coming off of Top Gun Maverick. I think this movie is going to be huge, okay? The Mission Impossible movies are interesting because each movie has been honestly getting better and better, and with that, the box office has been going up and up. And I think this is going to be no different. I think this movie is going to be the biggest movie in the franchise, especially coming off of Top Gun Maverick. With Top Gun Maverick making almost $1.5 billion, I think this movie could easily make $1 billion. And I have no reason to believe it's not going to be good with Christopher McQuarrie directing once again. He is incredible and does incredible movies. And obviously this can be filled with lots of practical stunts and real action, which I think the audience is craving these days. I think people are getting a little tired of the CGI, VFX heavy films that Marvel's putting out and DC's putting out and all these other franchises. The Mission Impossible franchise, like Top Gun, is real. It's practical and you can feel it. And there's something different about that. There's something that separates these action films from the other action films out there. So I think it's going to do very well. And I think this is exactly the type of the movie, like I said, the audiences are craving right now. I'm going to put my prediction $950 million to $1.05 billion. I think this could hit $1 billion. The last movie made $790 million, and I think that's the floor. That is the absolute floor, is $790 million. So I think this is 800 plus for sure, and I think it could crack that $1 billion. Barbie is such a gamble. I have no clue what's gonna happen with Barbie. Okay, the first teaser came out for Barbie, and it was a riff on 2001: A Space Odyssey for a Barbie movie. What? I don't understand. I don't understand who their target audience is. I don't understand what they're going for. I'm here for it. I know a lot of film Twitter is excited for it. I don't know how much the general audience is gonna like it. One reason why I have this I predict this will do pretty well is that the test audience reactions have been really good. Apparently this is testing really well. A lot of people came out of the movie loving it. Granted, it seems like a lot of people who are loving it are like that film Twitter crowd of people and not just like general audience members. So it's still hard to tell like how much a regular audience member who is like, oh, a Barbie movie, let me go watch a Barbie movie, like how well they're going to receive it, how much they're gonna like it, if they're gonna recommend it. So it's really hard. This is a wild card for sure, but I feel like it could be a hit. I feel like it could be a hit. I'm gonna say $300 to $400 million. Getting a lot of online attention. The whole Oppenheimer versus Barbie thing is gonna be a big talking point. Speaking of Oppenheimer, let's talk about Oppenheimer. A new Christopher Nolan movie. It's not like a big action movie though. It's not an Inception. It's not even like a Tenet. It's like more of a character study. But you know, you got big bombs going off in this movie, nuclear weapons. So a lot of people are gonna wanna see Christopher Nolan's insane practical stunts on the big screen. And this is a movie that's, I think, really gonna be marketed as a movie that you gotta see on the big screen. And you got a pretty stacked cast. You got Matt Damon, you got Emily Blunt, you got Cillian Murphy, amongst many, many others. So you got a stacked cast. It looks very good from the trailers. It's Christopher Nolan. All right, the Marvels. Obviously the first Captain Marvel movie made $1 billion. All right, that happened, but that was in between Infinity War and Endgame. It came out like just a month or two before Endgame, and it was riding the Endgame hype for sure, definitely. Now, at this point, Captain Marvel isn't one of the best aged Marvel movies, and the character itself it's not one of the more beloved characters in the MCU as of right now, right? I don't think people are dying to see a Captain Marvel sequel. This movie also apparently has some like weird elements to it. There's a lot of weird comedic stuff. It seems like they're taking a big swing with some of the stuff they're going with here, some of the cosmic stuff. There's like a planet where everybody just sings. So I don't know how well that's gonna land for audiences. I also think this movie's just bound to get some online hate, and it's gonna have some controversy surrounding it. You just know that Twitter is gonna be a toxic place when this movie releases. I just have a feeling. And I just don't see this movie being one that people are going to rush out to go and see. It's not a big event movie. It's a sequel to Captain Marvel, which wasn't super well received. You got Ms. Marvel in there, and her show was one of the more underperforming shows for Marvel. I'm gonna put my prediction at $550 to $650 million, which would really be on the low end for Marvel. So that is my prediction. Wish is the newest movie by Disney Animation that's coming out this year. And apparently this movie is like a celebration of all of Disney movies since it's coming out in the 100th year of Disney, and it's all about the wishing star, like the actual star that all the princesses have wished on over the years. And I think that's a really cool concept, and it could be really cool. And if they really try to capture that Disney magic and make this a celebration of all Disney, it could be really big. They said that they're blending some 2D animation with 3D animation, which I think is a really cool idea as well. It's another princess movie, it's another musical, and we've seen a lot of those musicals blow up. Frozen, massive. Moana, massive. Tangled. All the Disney princess movies. Like, Raya is a Disney princess movie, but didn't have any music, and it didn't do super well, and nobody's talking about it. So this is another Disney princess musical. I think it's going to be big. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this movie. I think that a lot of people are going to want to go and see this movie. Again, though, Disney has messed with their audience because of their whole streaming thing that they've been doing with putting things on Disney Plus super quickly. We saw it with Strange World. We might see it with these next couple of movies. So because of that, I could take a risk and say that this one's going to be a massive hit, but it's hard to say that when Encanto only made like a couple $100 million. So I'm going to put my prediction at, I'm leaning 3 to 4 or 4 to $500 million. Let's be nice. Let's say this makes between $400 and $500 million. Is that too much of a gamble? Is that too much? I don't know. All right, let's move down a couple of months to Dune. We got Dune Part 2 coming out in, I believe, November. And I don't think Dune has a chance of like hitting $1 billion or anything, but I think it could actually be very successful. The first Dune movie made $400 million worldwide, even though it was released on HBO Max day and date. That is really good. That's really respectable. So the fact that it could make $400 million while being on HBO Max, I think this movie is going to do even better. I think that a lot of people have watched this movie digitally since it's been released, and it's one that stayed in the conversation. It's been a movie that a lot of people really liked and respect, and I think a lot of people are excited to see where this franchise goes. It's also apparently more action-packed. This side of the novel that this movie's adapting is more action-packed than the first half of the novel, so that's sure to please audiences. You got Zendaya in a bigger role in this one. You got some really big stars in Florence Pugh and Austin Butler joining the cast. So for all those reasons, I think this is going to be a big event movie. How big? That's an interesting question. I'm not so sure about that. I think it'll depend on the marketing for this movie and how well it's received. So I'm gonna put my prediction at like $650 to $750 million, which would be a really respectable uptick from the first movie. But I do think this one has the potential to maybe be even bigger. And finally, Aquaman 2. Aquaman obviously made $1 billion, the first movie back in like 2018. That was a big surprise hit. But weirdly, I don't think this one's going to do as well as the first one for a couple of reasons. I think, again, the superhero fatigue is going to factor into this one. I think the fact that DC is getting rebooted after The Flash, so this is like a weird in-between movie where it's going to have been rebooted, but the new DC won't have been kicked off yet. It's a weird in-between stage. And now I don't think a lot of the audience knows about that or cares about that, but I think it's going to affect it a bit. Also, the first Aquaman movie wasn't received super well. I don't know how much people are going to be dying to go and see the second one. I really don't know. Again, I think it will largely depend on the marketing for this movie. This could be another situation though, where the movie has incredible legs and makes a lot of money over the Christmas holiday, like the first Aquaman movie and like Avatar did just this year. That is a great window for making a lot of money, and this will be the big blockbuster movie in theaters. I feel like in this video I'm being way too generous with my predictions, and I'm too hopeful for audience. I'm too hopeful that all these movies are going to make a bunch of money and that audiences are going to show up. But realistically, we haven't seen a full return for audiences to the box office yet. It's been much better. We've seen recovery and gradual recovery over the past couple of years, and so far this year has been very good for the box office, and there's a very strong lineup of films here that I think we could have a really strong year, but again, it's really hard to say. So all those predictions might have been a little optimistic. I realize that. I'll probably look back on this video and laugh at some of these predictions, but I like being hopeful, and I like to think that every movie is going to do super well. So those are my predictions for the 2023 box office. Yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think are going to be the top performers at the box office this year. Going off my list, mine are the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Little Mermaid, Fast X, maybe Guardians. I think that's what we're looking at for the big hits of the year, and there could be a couple others in there as well, like Mission Impossible or even Dune, a couple surprise hits in there as well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let me know what movies you are most excited to see. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon, the like button, leave a comment down below. All that kind of stuff really helps out the channel. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. See ya.